Airport employees of Reddit, what is the strangest, funniest, scariest thing that happened at your airport? Pittsburgh International. 3 AM or so several years ago. Watched an older woman tumble down the up escalator. Every time she flipped over she yelled "I'm okay" like Filbert from Rocko's Modern Life. Flop. I'm okay. Flop. I'm okay. Flop. I'm okay. Rolled in place for maybe a minute before someone shut the thing off. Airports employ falconers. The birds are used to keep other birds away from aircraft. Because a bird in an engine can really mess up someone's day. So this falconer had come into the airport with his bird to grab a cup of coffee. He decided to try to impress some ladies by taking the hawk's hood off and doing a little demonstration. What he failed to notice was the starlings resting outside on a steel beam. Hawk flew after starlings, smoked the glass and broke its neck. Thousands of dollars worth of highly trained bird. Gone. I work at my local airport. I live on a tiny island and this airport is smaller than our library. And just last summer we had a hurricane looming down on us. Everyone is getting packed up to evacuate. We're renting cars like crazy to people fleeing and we're trying to get them out of the storm area. I was out checking on the cars we had and when I walked back up there was a man sitting on a bench out front. With an apocalyptic looking storm bearing down on us. Wind whipping everywhere. Just soulfully playing the trombone. No idea where he came from or what he was doing but it was surreal. Like something out of a David Lynch film. Edit, to clarify. This island is tiny. But it is also very closed off the coast and has a bridge to the mainland. I worked at a corporate aircraft maintenance place. And we had a situation where this crazy woman somehow got out on the secured ramp area. By the time one of our line service guys saw her she had the main entry door opened up on a Global XRS aircraft. When he pulled up she looked at him and asked if he could help her get her bags and boat. When he told her he couldn't, she told him she was going to fly the plane to China and didn't want to be late. After that occurrence the security at our airport became insane. I was at the airport one day, waiting for my girlfriend to come pick me after my flight. She was about 20 minutes away so I sat down by a window ledge to read it, obviously. And like normal there were various airport employees, security people, passengers, etc. wandering around. After about 5 minutes, I notice a couple cops with a dog eyeing me up. They go to walk by. And all of a sudden the dog gets really close to me and then sit down. The cops give me an intense look. And reach under the ledge where I was sitting. All of a sudden, they pull out a bag with a few grams of weed in it. This is not my weed. And I start freaking out internally. Like any normal person. One of the cops goes, "What's this all about?" Then, the other cop bursts out laughing. And explains that they are doing canine training and I happened to sit down right over the exact spot they had previously hidden the bag of weed for the dog to find. The cops were laughing so hard they had to take a couple-minute break from their training. And after my blood pressure kinda returned to normal I thought it was pretty funny too. Edit, I should have mentioned I had at least 300 feet of window ledge to choose where to sit. And I happened to pick that exact spot. Worked at Perth Airport until recently. Most flights in Perth go to Bali and you see some right characters. Read, Bali Bogans. A Jetstar flight was delayed by 7 hours and a woman and her husband used the time to get absolutely it-faced. The woman fancied a cigarette and rather than go outside and go through security again, lit up in the middle of the duty-free. My colleagues quickly tried to stop her. But she told them to duck off. Cue airport police. $10,000 fine and no flight to Bali. Should have listened to the staff. My time to shine. Most of the airport work is mundane but you will get the odd passenger that leaves an impression on you. There was a group of people coming through for a business trip and their boss had never flown before. One of his employees came in and explained they told him he needed dental records for TSA and wanted us to play along. So the boss comes in and hands me his ID and an x-ray from his dentist to check in for his flight. Trying not to laugh, I show it to my coworker who points at it and says, Well, Tsar might have an issue with that. Dude's face went white as a sheet until his employees busted up laughing. He got super red in the face and eventually started laughing at himself. Never let it be said that airports are humorless places. I used to do cargo for Delta and British Airways. We ship a lot of dead people. A lot of animals. Too. They actually send me to LA to go to a class entirely on animal handling. Here's regulations and procedures for everything all the way up to elephants and whales and sheet. Weirdest thing we ever got to actually ship was an alligator of some sort. Wasn't funny in any way. But this guy had to bring the ugliest dog I have ever seen to the airport and send it to his ex-wife so that she could put it down. She hated him and the dog, but she had a better lawyer. Guy was a big burly dude fighting back tears the whole time and asked if he could take him out to play with him in the grass one more time. What? Like he lost custody of dog Dart? Yes. And she told him as soon as she sees it she is putting it down. Damn, dog was as happy as could be without a clue in the world. This happened like 30 years ago and I still can picture the whole thing like it was yesterday. Not me. But my father was regional manager of one of the rental car companies at the airport, and on 9/11 when all flights were grounded everyone needed rental cars and it was havoc. My father said the phone rang and he almost didn't answer because he was so busy. Turns out it was the company CEO and ordered him to hand out keys free. No cost. No documentation, as the situation was severe and all other major rental companies followed suit. Not necessarily strange, funny or scary, but it is one of the few stories he told me about the job as a kid that I always remember. Not me, but a guy I once met. He works at the counter for a big local airline. There was a lady about mid to late 50s about to board with 4 big suitcases. This was a time when you normally could bring up to 2 suitcases or 23 kilograms. He notices this and tells the lady she would have to pay for the extra 2 suitcases. The lady nonchalantly says, "Oh, my husband is carrying those." He asks about her husband and again, completely relaxed and in a natural voice, she points at the plane and answers that's him in the coffin. After that he apologizes and let the lady board. Edit, a little bit of clarification. Edit 2. 2.7k upvotes? Damn. My parents worked in airports and told me this story that happened sometime in the late 70s. They notice a patch of purple on the marble floor near the check-in queue. Thinking someone has spilled their red wine on the floor, a cleaner comes over and clears it up. About half an hour later, there's another pool of purple. A different cleaner comes along, clears it up. Eventually the original cleaner comes back, notices the same pool he cleared up already is back. He doesn't know what's going on. He looks up. There's an air vent, dripping something. Maybe it's air conditioning coolant or something. He reports it to his supervisor. Nothing happens for a day or two. They just keep mopping up this coolant. Eventually they send an air con tech into the roof. He comes back down the ladder, white as a sheet. It's a body. Turns out someone had tried to break past security by climbing through the air ducts. This is pre-Die Hard. Remember? So quite clever. Wasn't so clever was taking a wrong turn in the dark and falling 30 feet into a fan mechanism drop. Smoosh. Not me, but a friend. He used to work refueling planes. Most days during lunch he would sit in the airport and do some people watching. Anyway, a cart with a bunch of baggage rolls by and the bag on the end falls off without anyone noticing but him. After some time security is notified of the unknown bag. Taking all precautions, security bring in the gum sniffing dog to check it out. The dog sniffs it for a second and then all of a sudden begins to hump the bag. This was all before 9/11. Not an employee but a passenger. I got flagged for a random SAR pat down and the agent asked me if I had any metal in my body. To which I said, I have an IUD. The agent freaks out and starts flagging other agents over. She musters all her calm and says, please repeat that you have an IUD on you, to which I had to say no. An IUD. A copper intrauterine device. For birth control. She didn't know what an IUD was. I bet she'll remember now. A little different. But I work avionics on F-22s in the Air Force. Most of the work is done outside. One day on mid-shift we get told to go inside, turn off the lights, and not look outside. Not knowing what the hell was going on, we obviously complied. Once everyone was inside, the big stadium lights that covered the entire airfield were turned off and all the entire airfield was dark. We heard low rumbling in the distance that was getting closer and rumors started flying. We were under attack. Aliens. You name it. Eventually we could hear 3 large planes fly very low overhead and be gone. After 15 more minutes we were given the go-ahead to go back outside and back to work. To this day I still don't know what the hell happened. Not an employee. Dad ran a business in Missouri and hired a mechanic who ended up being horrible. Left his tools everywhere. Trucks he worked on would break down. Everything was covered in oily fingerprints. etc. Employee was fired and forgotten. Fast forward a few years. My parents are on their honeymoon in Cancun getting on the plane to come back home. When the pilot announces over the PA system that the plane can't take off for a while because of maintenance, my dad looks out the window at the wing and sees oily fingerprints and tools all over the wing and the ground. His old mechanic walks out from under the wing and begins working under a panel on the wing. Dad gets super worried and wants off the plane immediately. Edit for all the questions. No. He didn't get off, since they'd paid for the flight. I don't think mom was going to let them leave in a million years. They made it safely home. Or I wouldn't be here to tell you all the story. I was cabin crew doing a turnaround from Dubai, UAE to Muscat, Oman and back again. We're on ground in Muscat and hear from ground staff to take extra care of a passenger who is about to board. She was an English lady in her 50s. As you can imagine. Well turned out but unassuming all the same. But she looked completely shaken when she boarded. So what happened was, she had checked in her luggage and had gone on to security. She placed her trolley bag on the conveyor belt and she went ahead through the metal detector and was waiting on the other side for her bag. Next thing she knows she's being detained. Placed in handcuffs and taken to a room for questioning. They take in her bag and start questioning her. Airport police officer, did you pack this bag yourself? Lady, yes. Airport police, so you know what's in the bag? Lady, yes, and goes about describing what's in the bag. The questioning goes on for a while and is quite aggressive. The police officer then opens up the bag and right on top of everything is this parcel filled with marijuana. She's aghast and protests her innocence. Doesn't know anything about it. This poor lady is completely distraught. The gravity of it is hitting her and she's inconsolable. Drug trafficking anywhere is a big no-no. But in Middle Eastern countries it can end up giving you the death penalty. The officers review the footage of when her bag was scanned. And when she placed her bag on the belt and turned away, a man standing right behind her in seconds undid the zips and slipped it in. She had no idea who this man was. So she was let go and free to continue traveling, but her trolley bag was confiscated as evidence. She wasn't too worried about the bag at that stage. I got her a very big brandy. Lesson to be learned is to not let your bags out of your sight. Even for a second. I was not an airport employee, but was shadowing employees as part of a pilot training program. One of our rotations was to spend a few days with the fire department. Not much action, fortunately. But the fire station was in the middle of the airfield. So the view was epic. The Virginia Air National Guard operated F-16s from the airport at the time. They would go out 3 jets a time. And would land 1, 2, 3 in quick succession. I was in the fire station when 3 F-16s were on short final to land. The tower asked a bizjet to hold short of their arrival runway. The bizjet either didn't hear or misunderstood and rolled out onto the runway. The tower told the F-16s to go around. The lead jet banked a hard left, followed by the number 2 jet. But number 3 kept coming. Deer down. Landing light on. The tower called to the number 3 jet to go around. Ang radios are encrypted, so we could only hear the tower talking. not the F-16. The number 3 jet was still coming. The biz jet had nowhere to go and the firefighters started getting antsy. The number 3 F-16 flew directly over the top of the biz jet. Simultaneously pulled up his gear and hit the afterburner. Barreled half the length of the runway. Then pulled up hard left to join his buddies. The F-16 probably cleared the biz jet by 100 feet. But it seemed a lot closer to us in the fire station. And I'm sure even closer to the NOV biz jet pilot. The firefighters found it hilarious. TLDR. F-16 pilot sets biz jet pilot's underpants to code brown using afterburner. I work the cargo ramp. We're at the very edge of the main runway. And there's a marshy area about 200 feet from the end of the runway. One day we saw a pickup roll out on the service road near the marsh. And hear several shotgun blasts. A couple minutes later, the airport guys in the truck roll up and ask if anyone wants some free geese. One of our crew took 2 dead geese home and smoked them for us. Delicious. Apparently, the geese were just coming right back to that spot if they were forcibly relocated. So they had to be permanently removed. A school friend's father worked on passport control at Gatwick in the mid-80s. In those days passports were often handwritten and had spaces for things like distinguishing features. One day a young woman presented her passport to him. And he opened it and compared the photo. And then paused before saying this is a bit unusual. He showed her the open passport which read in part, distinguishing features, big tits. She exclaimed, my bloody brother. I'll heal him. Not an employee. But I was in LaGuardia Airport, Nick, when there was a bomb threat. It's crazy how you could easily tell who's from Nick and who's not. New Yorkers literally don't give a shit. They are already in LaGuardia. What more could life possibly do to them? Not an airport employee, but my dad is. I'm sure he's got many stories, but my favorite is one I also experienced. We're in the TSA line as a family. On our way to visit family across the country. The line is its regular slow self. But we're nearing the point where we have to take off our shoes and belts and whatnot. Suddenly, there's a commotion in front of us. Where people pick us their bags after scanning. A woman has packed the following things into her carry-on and is refusing to hit TSA when they tell her she can't take them on. A full-size Costco double pack of peanut butter. A toaster, the kind that flings your toast in the air. A blender with blade. I'm sure there were other things too. But I have never forgotten those 3 things being slowly pulled out of her bag. I was an F-16 crew chief, so I sort of worked at an airport. I was only a guardsman, so I didn't see too many crazy things, but one of the jets dumped about 40 gallons of JP8 jet fuel out of its rear wing onto the ground, and my friend, while he was doing a pre-flight inspection, IDKY, but my first instinct was that sheet is going to ignite because the jet was on. It didn't, so it was just funny seeing my friend's pants soaked with jet fuel. I was in the San Juan PR airport in the American Airlines terminal on the morning of the 10th anniversary of 9/11. At 8 AM everything came to a halt and there was a call for a minute of silence. All American Airlines employees just stopped. Hung their heads and slowly everyone else stopped talking. It was pretty much quiet other than traffic and some industrial hum. It went from controlled chaos to stillness and back. Worked for a summer as a sky cap at an airport in Maine. A couple of the 9/11 hijackers came through that airport. And then to Logan, in Boston, which is where the hijacking took place. They chose this airport in Portland precisely because it was kinda podunk and no one would pay attention as much. A guy I worked with actually showed them to where the rental car place was, because the way the airport was set up back then, it was in this weird corner and people would ask for our help to find it constantly. Poor guy felt like he was in some way responsible. On the way back through TSA from a class trip to Germany, one of my classmates got pulled aside from the group because he bought gummy bears in bulk from a Haribo store and they thought he was smuggling something in them. Dude just really liked gummies. One time a couple of us were wing walking a 757 back from the gate while our ACMX guy drove the pushback. After the jet is backed up, we're supposed to detach the pushback vehicle from the tow bar. Then detach the tow bar from the plane's landing gear. And reattach the tow bar to the pushback vehicle. That day, the 757's parking brake failed. And as we detached from the pushback, the plane started rolling toward us with the engines running. Looking up at a 100,000 pound vehicle that's already basically on top of me while the engines came toward me was quite the experience. The captain had to stand on his pedal brake to stop the plane rolling so we could finish and get clear. Both the other people with me immediately went out for a smoke.